What does a world look like that no longer exists? This forgotten hospital shows what happens when a place, and everything inside it, is simply abandoned. Beds still stand, patient records and doctors' diplomas remain, and even an intact X-ray machine and underground laboratory lie frozen in time. In this episode, we step inside this abandoned hospital, hidden in the middle of an active one, to uncover its haunting story and why it was left behind. We are starting in an overgrown section of the vast terrain. Active security and medical personnel are still present on the property, so we had to evade them. After some effort, we made it to our point of entry. Inside, a moist smell was the first thing we noticed, caused by the recent rain that had fallen in the area. Water was dripping all the way through the building, soaking it completely. A large hallway greeted us, filled to the brim with equipment and belongings. Paperwork in particular was abundant. Too much to look into, but most of it seemed to be administration. The level of decay was stunning in nearly all the rooms, with peeling paint covering every inch in this place. Combined with equipment not often seen today, it gave the impression of a true time capsule. This seemed to be some sort of baby's or children's crib. Its exact function is still unknown to us. Places such as these are the most interesting to me, with everything still left behind from the day it was closed down. It gives you an impression of traveling back in time. Further down the decayed hall, we entered what looked like to be a small porch. In fact, this area relates to the type of patients who once resided here, those suffering from respiratory diseases. During the construction of this hospital complex, tuberculosis was still a prevalent disease. The only real way to treat patients at the time was the simple method of fresh air and rest, which is why the porch was built. Further down the hallway, we found an old autoclave in the dark. An autoclave is an important machine in hospitals, used to disinfect equipment for operations and treatments. It's quite rare to encounter such an intact abandoned hospital in this good a condition, with so little vandalism. It's so well preserved because it's located on an active hospital site and is closely guarded. The perfect recipe for a time capsule. The history of this hospital property begins over 110 years ago, when a Jewish Slovak surgeon became its first director. He was a progressive doctor and believed in the newest technologies, such as X-ray machines and anesthesia. This was one of the first places in this region to use these innovations, truly revolutionary for its time. And so the hospital grew into a large, modern institution, helping thousands of patients. We headed down into the dark basement. According to information we had, something quite bizarre could be found here. But just around the corner we found the first truly unique items of this place. They were medical diplomas from the time of the communist Czechoslovakia. Degrees that were once prized possessions, a seal of quality for doctors, were simply discarded in the moist basement. But a strong stench led us deeper into the basement, where we eventually found something more personal. A massive archive of patient records, covered in a thick layer of mold. The stench here was overwhelming, with a heavy damp feeling in the air. It is highly illegal to leave such medical records behind. Normally, they must be destroyed when no longer needed. But it doesn't matter anymore. The mold and moisture had already destroyed all of them, making them unreadable. We couldn't spend much time here due to the mold, which made the room unsafe to breathe in for long. So we returned to see what was hiding in the other side of the wing. An old lab was located here, also heavily decayed. But like all rooms in this place, it was filled with many old items. This lab was probably used to test what kind of infections the patients had. We couldn't find old blood samples, so it seemed those were probably the one thing that had been cleared out when it closed down. When the Second World War broke out, a time of change for the hospital began. The first thing was the removal of the grandfather of this hospital, its founding director, by the Germans. The already elderly director, who had saved thousands of patients in its time, died in the back of a cattle car on the way to a concentration camp. After the war, Czechoslovakia became a communist state, which resumed and after expanded the hospital to become bigger than ever before. Although in the West tuberculosis became an illness of the past, behind the Iron Curtain it continued to be a problem. And so the hospital operated as usual. We made our way to the second floor of the building, which at the first glance was rather empty. Much had been cleared out, surprisingly enough. But behind an unassuming door, something truly remarkable was hidden. Intact X-ray room, dating back to a very different era. Everything was still in place, completely preserved. It was like stepping back in time. In a sense, it was also the only room that still looked intact, without too much decay. Old X-ray prints of lungs were scattered on the floor. The protective gear once shielding the doctor from radiation was still hanging on the coat rack, as if the operator could return at any moment. The abandonment of the hospital can be directly linked to the fall of the Iron Curtain. As the medical sector was modernized, old buildings such as these were simply no longer needed, so it was used as storage for a while, before eventually being forgotten by the staff and by time itself. The future of this building is unknown, but since it sits on the grounds of an active hospital, it will probably remain in this state, slowly decaying away.